My name is Kevin Mitchell, 34 years old, and until last Christmas, I thought my relationship with my sister Madison was normal. Growing up just 3 years apart, we had the usual sibling rivalry, but I never expected it would evolve into such a one-sided gift-giving pattern. For years, I'd pour thought and money into her presents while receiving dollar store trinkets in return. Last Christmas, something in me finally snapped. Before I dive into this wild ride of sibling rivalry, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how Madison's face looked when I finally turned the tables. Growing up in suburban Boston, Madison and I had what most would consider a typical childhood. Our parents, Robert and Catherine Mitchell, weren't wealthy by any means, but they worked hard to make sure we never went without. Dad was an accountant at a mid-sized firm, while Mom taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school. They were sticklers for fairness, making sure either of us felt favored over the other. Equal allowances, equal chores, equal punishment when we messed up, which happened plenty. Christmas mornings in the Mitchell household followed a sacred ritual. We'd wake up at the crack of dawn, Madison usually dragging me out of bed with an excitement that was infectious. We weren't allowed downstairs until 7 a.m. sharp, a rule our parents established after a particularly early 4:30 a.m. wake-up call when I was 6 and Madison was 9. We'd sit at the top of the stairs, whispering about what Santa might have brought, the anticipation almost unbearable. 3, 2, 1. Go! Dad would finally call out, and we'd thunder down the stairs like a herd of elephants, diving toward the presents arranged meticulously under our artificial tree. Even then, Mom and Dad made sure we had the same number of gifts, roughly the same size, with similar values. They'd watch us open them, taking turns, savoring each reaction. It was during one of these Christmases, when Madison was 16 and I was 13, that she first became obsessed with the Audi R8. Dad had bought a car magazine as a stocking stuffer for himself, and Madison happened to flip through it while we were all lazing around in our pajamas, stuffed with Mom's cinnamon rolls. This, she declared dramatically, holding up the magazine with the sleek sports car on full display, is what I'm going to drive someday. Dad chuckled. That's a $250,000 car, Maddie. I don't care, she said with absolute conviction. I'll work as hard as I need to. This isn't just a car. It's a statement. That was Madison in a nutshell. While I was content with practical things, a good computer, reliable sneakers, books I'd read until they fell apart, Madison always had her eyes on the shiny, the expensive, the status symbols. Not that there's anything wrong with appreciating luxury, but for her, it became almost an obsession. As we grew older, this difference in our outlooks became more pronounced. Madison was laser-focused on success, as defined by wealth and status. She fought tooth and nail for a scholarship to Cornell, majored in finance, and landed a high-paying job at an investment firm in New York City straight out of college. By 25, she was making 6 figures and living in a sleek apartment in Manhattan, posting carefully curated photos on Instagram that made her life look like something out of a glossy magazine. My path was more winding. I had good grades too, but I opted for the state university, studying computer science. After graduation, I joined a tech startup that had promising beginnings but hit turbulence during a market downturn. For a few years, I was barely scraping by, picking up freelance coding jobs to supplement my meager salary while the company tried to find its footing. Madison never missed an opportunity to subtly highlight the contrast in our situations. Still at that little app company, Kevin? She'd ask during family gatherings, in a tone that suggested I was selling pencils on a street corner. It's called investing in potential, I'd reply, trying not to sound defensive. We're developing something revolutionary. She'd smile in that way that didn't quite reach her eyes. Well, I hope it works out for you. This dynamic played out in our gift-giving habits too. Despite my tighter budget, I always made an effort to give Madison thoughtful, valuable presents. When she graduated from Cornell, I spent nearly 2 months' rent on a beautiful Michael Kors watch she'd been eyeing. For her 30th birthday, I coordinated with 3 friends to get her a weekend at an exclusive spa resort in the Berkshires. In return? Well, that's where things get interesting. The first few years, I made excuses for her. When she gave me a clearance rack sweater that still had the $12.99 price tag attached for my birthday, I told myself she was busy. When Christmas yielded a generic gift basket that was clearly from her company's holiday party, I reasoned that she was stressed with her demanding job. But as the pattern continued year after year, it became harder to ignore. Especially when I witnessed her lavishing expensive gifts on her friends and colleagues, a $500 bottle of whiskey for her boss, designer handbags for her girlfriends. It wasn't about the money, it was about the thought, or rather, the complete lack of it when it came to me. Maybe she just doesn't know what you like, my mom suggested once, always trying to keep the peace. But that excuse fell flat too. I'd been openly collecting vintage vinyl records for years. I talked about books I wanted to read. I mentioned tech gadgets I was interested in. Madison simply wasn't listening, or worse, didn't care. The contrast became even more stark when Madison met and married Brian Thompson, a fellow finance professional with family money. Their wedding was an extravagant affair at a historic mansion, with ice sculptures and a 10-piece band. My gift to them was a pair of first-class tickets to Bali for their honeymoon, stretching my budget to the absolute limit, but worth it, I thought, to show my support for her happiness. Their gift to me when I moved into my new apartment a month later? A houseplant. Not even a nice one, the kind you pick up at the grocery store checkout for $9.99. It died within 2 weeks. It took me longer than it should have to recognize the pattern. I think I was in denial, not wanting to believe my own sister could be so consistently thoughtless toward me specifically. Each time a birthday or Christmas approached, I'd convince myself that this time would be different. It never was. The year I turned 28, I spent weeks tracking down a limited edition vinyl of Madison's favorite album from high school, a nostalgic throwback that cost me nearly $200 and countless hours scouring online forums. When she opened it, there was a flicker of genuine surprise and pleasure on her face. "Wow, I can't believe you remembered this," she said, briefly examining the record before setting it aside. Later, I overheard her telling Brian it was sweet but kind of useless, since they didn't own a record player. She never bothered to get one, and when I visited their apartment 6 months later, the vinyl was nowhere to be seen. For my birthday that same year, Madison gave me a novelty coffee mug with a generic, "World's Best Brother" slogan that still had a Marshall's clearance sticker partially peeled off the bottom. It was so impersonal it hurt more than receiving nothing at all would have. The pattern extended beyond just gifts. When I achieved milestones like when my app finally launched after years of development, Madison's acknowledgement was perfunctory at best. A quick, "congrats" text maybe. But when she got a promotion or bonus, the entire family was expected to celebrate elaborately. Our parents noticed, I could tell. During family gatherings, Mom would sometimes give me an apologetic look when Madison would unwrap my carefully chosen gift with barely concealed indifference. Dad once tried to compensate by giving me an extra nice birthday present, from all of us, but it only highlighted the disparity more. Madison's husband Brian was an interesting character in this dynamic. Tall, conventionally handsome, with the polished demeanor of someone who attended prep schools his whole life, he initially struck me as just another finance bro. But over time, I realized he was more perceptive than he let on. During a family 4th of July barbecue, while Madison was inside helping Mom with dessert, Brian and I ended up alone by the grill. "That watch you got Maddie for Christmas was really something," he said, nursing his craft beer. "She wears it to all the important client meetings." "Glad she likes it," I replied, flipping burgers with perhaps more force than necessary. Brian hesitated, then added, "Look, I've noticed the imbalance in how she reciprocates. I've tried bringing it up, but..." He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "But what?" "She has a blind spot when it comes to you. Something about sibling dynamics I don't fully understand. I'm an only child, so..." He shrugged. I appreciated his acknowledgement, but it didn't change anything. Madison continued her pattern of thoughtless gifts and minimal recognition of my achievements, while expecting royal treatment in return. Everything shifted when I met Rachel Donovan at a tech conference in San Francisco. Smart, insightful, with a dry sense of humor that matched mine perfectly, Rachel was the first person I'd dated seriously in years. Within 6 months, she had integrated seamlessly into my life, including meeting my family. Rachel noticed the gift disparity immediately. After our first Christmas together, where she witnessed Madison giving me a 3-pack of socks while unwrapping the premium noise-canceling headphones I'd bought her, Rachel didn't hold back. "What the hell was that?" she asked as we drove home. "Does your sister always treat you like an afterthought?" Having someone else validate what I'd been feeling for years was like a dam breaking. I found myself pouring out the whole history. Every disappointing gift, every dismissive reaction, every imbalanced expectation. "You need to address this directly," Rachel advised. "Talk to her about how it makes you feel." But confrontation has never been my strong suit, especially with Madison. She had a way of turning things around, making me feel petty or materialistic for even bringing up such concerns. "It's just stuff," she'd say if I ever hinted at my disappointment. "I thought you were above caring about commercial gifts." So I continued the one-sided generosity, the effort without reciprocation. Until my 33rd birthday, when Madison outdid herself in the worst way possible. Her gift? A $10 gift card to a local coffee shop chain that had closed all its locations in my area months earlier. The expiration date on the card had already passed. It wasn't just thoughtless, it was almost deliberately useless, as if she'd grabbed the first thing she found in her junk drawer. That night, as Rachel and I shared a bottle of wine on my balcony, I made a decision. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm not doing this anymore." Rachel took my hand. "What are you thinking?" I wasn't entirely sure yet. But for the first time in our adult lives, I was ready to stop playing the role of the eternally understanding, eternally generous brother who expected nothing in return. After the expired gift card incident, something shifted inside me. What began as hurt had crystallized into something harder: resentment. I started keeping what Rachel jokingly called my gift journal, documenting the stark contrast between what I gave and what I received. It wasn't about the monetary value. It was about the effort, the thought, the basic consideration that should exist between siblings. December 2018, I gave Madison a custom-designed photo album chronicling our family history, with digitally restored photos dating back to our grandparents, professionally bound in leather. Cost: $350 plus countless hours of restoration work. Her gift to me: a generic desk calendar with puppies on it. Retail value: approximately $6.99. April 2019, my birthday. I received a coffee mug that said, "Bearded men are better. I've never had a beard," with the Ross Dress for Less sticker still attached. $7.99. For her birthday the previous month, I'd given her tickets to see her favorite band, 4th-row seats. $280. The disparity was so obvious that I finally decided to talk to someone professional about it. Dr. Levine, a therapist recommended by Rachel, listened carefully as I laid out the pattern. "What you're describing sounds like a fundamental imbalance in how you and your sister view your relationship," she said after I'd finished. "Have you considered that this gift-giving disparity might be a symptom of something deeper?" "Like what?" I asked. "Sometimes when people consistently devalue others' contributions, it's a reflection of their own insecurities. They need to maintain a certain power dynamic where they receive more than they give." I thought about Madison's competitive nature growing up, how she always needed to be seen as the successful one, the special one. The question you need to ask yourself, Dr. Levine continued, is whether continuing this pattern is serving your well-being. It clearly wasn't. Each disappointment chipped away at what relationship we had left. I found myself dreading family gatherings, anticipating the inevitable moment where I'd watch Madison's face register polite indifference at whatever thoughtful gift I'd selected, followed by my forced smile when opening whatever last-minute item she'd grabbed. Christmas 2019 was particularly painful. We were all at our parents' house, gathered around the tree as usual. I'd given Madison a pair of sapphire earrings that matched her wedding set, something she'd mentioned wanting months earlier. Her face lit up when she opened them, one of the few times I'd seen genuine appreciation from her. "These are gorgeous, Kevin," she exclaimed, immediately putting them on and admiring herself in the reflection of her phone screen. Then came her gift to me. A novelty tie with cartoon computers on it, still in the packaging from a discount website, clearly bought during a last-minute shopping spree. The suggested retail price on the back was $12.99, but the clearance sticker showed she'd paid $5. What made it worse was listening to her brag about the Tiffany bracelet Brian had given her, and the weekend spa retreat she'd booked for her best friend Sarah. She had the capacity for generosity and thoughtfulness, just not for me. That night, I confided in Dad while we were washing dishes after dinner. "Have you ever noticed how Madison never puts any thought into gifts for me?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Dad sighed, setting down the plate he was drying. "Your sister has always been self-centered in certain ways. Your mother and I probably should have corrected that more when you were kids." "It's not about the money," I clarified. "I don't need expensive things. It's just—" "I know, son. It's about feeling valued." He patted my shoulder. "Sometimes people don't realize what they're doing until they experience it themselves." His words stuck with me, especially as my own fortunes began to change. After years of struggle, the app my company had developed, a specialized tool for graphic designers, was finally gaining serious traction. 3 major design firms had signed enterprise contracts, and Adobe was making overtures about potential acquisition. Suddenly, I wasn't the struggling little brother anymore. My company was featured in TechCrunch, and I did a segment on a popular tech podcast. The financial outlook had transformed virtually overnight. Madison's reaction was telling. Rather than straightforward congratulations, her response had an edge to it. "Look at you, finally hitting the big time," she said during a family dinner, in a tone that somehow made it sound like I'd just gotten lucky. "Though I'm sure it's nothing compared to what Brian's firm handles in a single transaction." "Different industries, different scales," I replied evenly. "But we're doing very well." Madison couldn't help inserting little competitive comments throughout the evening. When I mentioned potentially buying a new car now that the company was profitable, she immediately launched into a detailed description of the luxury vehicle she and Brian were considering, an Audi R8, her dream car since high school. "It's finally within reach," she said, eyes gleaming. "Brian's year-end bonus should cover the down payment, and with my promotion, we can handle the monthly payments. It's the ultimate status symbol in our circle." "That's a serious machine," Dad commented. "What's the price tag on something like that?" "Around $170,000 for the base model," Madison replied casually, as if discussing the cost of dinner. "But we're looking at the upgraded version with all the packages. Closer to $210,000. Mom nearly choked on her wine. "That's more than our house cost originally." Madison waved off her concern. "It's an investment. In our industry, appearances matter." "Right, Brian?" Brian looked less enthusiastic than his wife. "We're still weighing our options," he said diplomatically. Later that evening, while Madison was showing Mom photos of the car on her phone, Brian pulled me aside on the patio. "Things aren't exactly as they seem with us," he admitted quietly, glancing over his shoulder to ensure Madison wasn't within earshot. "The firm had layoffs last quarter. I survived, but my bonus is going to be significantly smaller than previous years. Madison doesn't want to accept that we might need to tighten our belts." "She's still set on the Audi?" I asked. Brian nodded, looking stressed. "She's been obsessed with it for months. Keeps saying she's manifesting it, whatever that means. But between the mortgage on the condo, her shopping habits, and the market being what it is, I'm concerned." I felt a strange mix of sympathy for Brian and vindication that Madison's perfect life wasn't so perfect after all. It was petty, perhaps, but after years of her subtle put-downs about my financial situation, there was a certain poetic justice to it. A few weeks later, my parents celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. Madison's gift to them was a photo frame from Bed Bath & Beyond with 40 years of love engraved on it, nice enough, but clearly purchased with minimal effort. I had arranged a weekend getaway for them at the same bed and breakfast where they'd spent their honeymoon, including a private dinner with a personal chef and a wine-tasting tour. The contrast was so stark that even Madison seemed embarrassed when our parents opened the gifts one after the other. For a brief moment, I thought I saw genuine reflection in her eyes, as if she was finally seeing the pattern. But it passed quickly, replaced by her usual defensive posture. "Well, some of us are too busy to plan elaborate gifts," she said with a strained laugh. "Quality time is what matters anyway, right?" As the year progressed, my frustration continued to mount. Rachel, ever my voice of reason, suggested I had two choices: have a direct confrontation with Madison about the years of imbalance, or simply adjust my own behavior to match hers. "You can't control how she acts," Rachel pointed out. "You can only control your response." The more I thought about it, the more an idea began to take shape in my mind. Madison had always dangled her successes in front of me, making sure I knew exactly what I couldn't afford, what I hadn't achieved. The Audi R8 was her latest fixation, the ultimate status symbol she couldn't stop talking about. What if, just once, I gave her a taste of her own medicine? "I'm not saying you should be petty," Rachel cautioned when I floated a vague version of my plan. "But I do think there might be a way to make her understand how it feels to be on the receiving end of thoughtlessness." By November, the pieces were falling into place. Adobe had made an official offer to acquire my company for a sum that still didn't feel real when I looked at the paperwork. I would remain on board to lead development, with stock options and a salary that dwarfed anything I'd ever imagined earning. As Christmas approached, I found myself at a crossroads. Part of me wanted to be the bigger person, to continue being generous despite Madison's history of thoughtlessness. But another part, the part that had been accumulating hurt for years, wanted her to finally understand how it felt. After a particularly sleepless night weighing my options, I made my decision. I signed the final acquisition paperwork with Adobe on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, I visited an Audi dealership. As December rolled in, the family group chat lit up with plans for Christmas at our parents' house, the usual arrangements about who would bring what dish, when everyone would arrive, and sleeping arrangements for those staying overnight. Madison dominated the conversation as always, insisting on handling the desserts because no one else gets the pastry quite right, and coordinating the family photo outfits down to the specific shade of burgundy. What was new this year were her increasingly unsubtle hints about her Christmas wishes. "Just a reminder that Brian and I will be driving separately since my car is having issues," she wrote. "Unless Santa brings me something with 4 wheels and a horse on the hood." LOL. Mom responded with an eye-rolling emoji. "Honey, I think that's beyond Santa's workshop budget this year." "A girl can dream," Madison replied, adding a car emoji and a winking face. It wasn't just in family communications. Madison's social media had become a vision board for her Audi obsession. She'd share photos of our 8S spotted in the wild with captions like "soon" and "manifesting my dream car for 2023. She'd tag Brian in these posts, an obvious public pressure campaign. Meanwhile, I was orchestrating my own plans. The acquisition deal had closed officially, with the first installment of funds hitting my account just 2 weeks before Christmas. The timing couldn't have been more perfect or more tempting. My suspicions about Madison and Brian's financial situation were confirmed when my cousin Tyler called me out of the blue. "Hey, what's this I hear about you being stingy with your new money?" he asked without preamble. "Excuse me?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "Madison was saying you hit it big with your company but haven't offered to help any family members. She mentioned they're struggling a bit with some investments that went south, and you haven't even checked in." The audacity was breathtaking. Not only had Madison never directly mentioned any financial difficulties to me, but she was actively spreading a narrative that I was hoarding wealth while family suffered. "Tyler, that's not remotely accurate," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "Madison hasn't asked me for anything, and based on her social media and conversations, I was under the impression they're doing extremely well." Oh, Tyler sounded confused. She made it sound like you were kind of showing off your new success without, sharing the wealth. After that conversation, I did some digging. Through mutual connections in the finance world, I learned that Brian's firm had indeed gone through significant restructuring. Several of his major clients had pulled their portfolios, and rumors suggested his position wasn't as secure as it once was. Madison's promotion had come with less of a salary bump than expected, and they'd taken a significant hit on some speculative investments. Yet their spending hadn't adjusted accordingly. Their social media still showcased expensive restaurants, designer purchases, and luxury vacations, all likely financed by growing credit card debt and the appearance of success they couldn't afford to lose. I brought all this information to Rachel one evening as we were decorating my apartment for the holidays. So they're basically keeping up appearances while drowning in debt, she summarized, hanging a bauble on my modest tree. And meanwhile, she's painting you as Ebenezer Scrooge to the family? Pretty much. Rachel sat on the couch, regarding me thoughtfully. What are you thinking of doing? I hesitated, then pulled out my phone and showed her the email from the Audi dealership with the subject line, Your R8 order confirmation. Her eyes widened. Kevin, you didn't? I did. It'll be ready for pickup 3 days before Christmas. That's a lot of money to spend to prove a point. It's not just about proving a point, I said, though part of me knew that wasn't entirely true. I've worked incredibly hard for years. The company acquisition is life-changing money. Why shouldn't I buy something nice for myself? Rachel gave me a look that said she wasn't buying it. And the fact that it's the exact car your sister has been obsessing over for months is just coincidence. I couldn't maintain the pretense under her scrutiny. Okay, fine. Yes, I want her to know how it feels. Just once. To be on the receiving end of the thoughtlessness she's shown me for years. And what do you think this will accomplish, exactly? It was a fair question. Was I hoping for an apology? A realization? Or was I simply indulging in petty revenge? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe nothing. Maybe she'll finally see the pattern. Or maybe I'll just enjoy the look on her face when she realizes what's happening. Rachel sighed. I understand why you're doing this. I do. But I'm concerned about what it might do to your relationship with her. Is this really the hill you want to die on? Our relationship is already on life support, I pointed out. Has been for years. I'm tired of being the only one trying. We talked for hours that night, exploring the ethical implications, the potential fallout, and whether I might regret such an expensive form of revenge. In the end, Rachel didn't try to talk me out of it, but she did make me promise to be open to reconciliation if Madison showed genuine remorse. The next day, I made 2 significant purchases. First, I completed the financing paperwork for the Audi R8 Glacier White with the black optic package, almost identical to the one Madison had been coveting. Second, I bought a $50 gift card to Nordstrom. Not thoughtless enough to be obviously insulting, but generic enough to make the point. As Christmas approached, my resolve occasionally wavered. Was I really going to go through with this? Was I becoming as petty and materialistic as I'd accused Madison of being? But then I'd remember all the years of one-sided generosity, of watching her face fall with disappointment at my thoughtful gifts while I pretended to be excited about whatever last-minute item she'd grabbed. One evening, just days before Christmas, I received a text from Brian. Hey, can we grab lunch tomorrow? Just us? We met at a casual sandwich place near my office. Brian looked tired, the dark circles under his eyes telling a story his carefully pressed shirt couldn't hide. I wanted to give you a heads up, he said after we'd ordered. Madison is, well, she's got her hopes up pretty high for Christmas this year. What do you mean? He looked uncomfortable. She's convinced herself that your recent success means you're going to help us with the down payment on the Audi. She's been dropping hints to you, hasn't she? I nearly choked on my water. She thinks I'm buying her a car? Brian winced. Not the whole thing, but maybe a significant contribution. She keeps saying it would be a perfect full-circle moment, since you're doing so well now, and she always supported your dreams. The delusion was so complete I almost laughed. Brian, she's never supported my career. Not once. She's spent years subtly putting down my choices and minimizing my achievements. I know, he said quietly. I've tried to tell her that her recollection of your relationship isn't entirely accurate. But she has a way of rewriting history to fit her preferred narrative. So why are you telling me this? He looked directly at me. Because I don't want you to be blindsided by her disappointment on Christmas Day. And because... He hesitated. I think it might be time for Madison to face some reality. About our finances, about how she treats people, about everything. I studied him for a moment. Are you saying you think I should let her down? I'm saying whatever you had planned, don't change it on my account. Madison needs to understand that her actions have consequences. That relationships are two-way streets. As I drove home from that lunch, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication that even Madison's husband recognized the problem. Sadness that it had come to this. And a renewed certainty that my plan, while perhaps extreme, was necessary not just for my own self-respect, but possibly for Madison's growth as well. The stage was set. Christmas was just days away, and for the first time in years, I felt a flutter of anticipation rather than dread. Christmas Eve arrived with a picture-perfect dusting of snow across our parents' suburban neighborhood. As I pulled into their driveway, my new Audi safely hidden in a nearby parking garage, I felt a strange mix of emotions: nervousness, anticipation, and a twinge of guilt that I quickly suppressed. The house looked like something from a holiday catalog. Mom had outdone herself with the decorations this year: garlands wrapped around the porch railings, twinkling white lights framing every window, and a wreath on the door that she'd handcrafted from pine branches from their backyard. Inside was even more festive. The familiar scent of Mom's cinnamon apple cider filled the air, mixing with the pine fragrance from the 7-foot Douglas fir standing proud in the corner of the living room. Dad's collection of vintage glass ornaments caught the light, sending prisms of color dancing across the walls. Rachel squeezed my hand as we stepped inside, a silent gesture of support. We'd decided she would be the one to drive us in her sensible Honda, leaving the Audi revelation for tomorrow's carefully orchestrated moment. Madison and Brian arrived 20 minutes after us, her entrance as dramatic as ever. The traffic was absolutely insane, she announced to the room, unwinding an expensive-looking cashmere scarf from her neck. I swear, if I had a better car, I could have maneuvered around those slowpokes. Her eyes immediately darted to the pile of presents under the tree, scanning for shapes and sizes. I knew what she was looking for: a small box that might contain car keys. Her momentary frown when she didn't spot anything promising gave me a petty satisfaction I wasn't proud of. The evening followed our usual family traditions. Dad mixed his famous eggnog, always a bit too heavy on the bourbon. Mom fussed over the table settings for tomorrow's dinner, and we all helped prepare various dishes for the Christmas feast. Madison, as promised, had brought elaborate pastries from an upscale bakery likely purchased on a credit card she couldn't afford to pay off. Throughout the night, I caught Madison watching me with a speculative expression. During a moment alone in the kitchen, she casually brought up my recent windfall. "So, the Adobe deal must have been pretty life-changing," she said, arranging cookies on a platter with meticulous precision. "I bet you're planning some big purchases." "I've made a few," I replied noncommittally. "Like what?" Her attempt at casual interest wasn't fooling anyone. "Oh, you know. Practical things. Paid off some debt. Upgraded some tech." I deliberately avoided mentioning the car. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well, that's sensible. I always say money should bring joy, though. By experiences, make dreams come true." "I couldn't agree more," I said, smiling enigmatically. As bedtime approached, we gathered in the living room for our Christmas Eve tradition, opening one small gift each before the main event tomorrow. Mom and Dad exchanged handwritten cards containing promises for weekend getaways. Rachel received a beautiful ornament from my parents to commemorate her first Christmas with the family. Then it was Madison's turn. She selected a small package from Brian, a pair of diamond earrings that made her squeal with delight. The look they exchanged made me wonder if Brian had put them on a credit card despite their financial struggles. When it came time for me to open a gift, Madison pushed a small, hastily wrapped package toward me. "This is just your Christmas Eve gift," she said with a wink. "The real present is for tomorrow." I unwrapped it to find a keychain with a cheap plastic Audi logo, the kind you might get from a vending machine. The price tag was still partially attached to the back, $3.99. "Because I know how much you admire my taste in cars," Madison said with a laugh that sounded hollow to my ears. "Maybe it'll inspire you." I forced a smile. "Thanks. Very thoughtful." Later that night, as Rachel and I settled into the guest room, she gave me a searching look. "Are you sure about tomorrow?" she asked quietly. "It's not too late to change course." I thought about the keychain, the latest in a long line of thoughtless gifts, and the years of one-sided generosity. "I'm sure," I said firmly. "It's time." Christmas morning dawned bright and clear. We gathered around the tree in our pajamas, coffee and hot chocolate steaming in festive mugs, the excitement palpable. Dad played Santa as always, distributing gifts one by one so we could all appreciate each person's reaction. Mom and Dad opened their presents first, practical items from Madison and Brian, an electric throw blanket and a set of grilling tools. While I'd given them a package for a 2-week European river cruise they'd been talking about for years but never thought they could afford. "Kevin, this is too much," Mom protested, tears in her eyes as she read the itinerary. "You both deserve it," I said simply. "And now I can finally do something like this for you." Madison's smile had frozen on her face, the contrast between our gifts to our parents impossible to ignore. As more presents were opened, the pattern continued. Madison gave Rachel a generic bath set that still had the holiday value pack $19.99 sticker on the bottom. I had given Brian a rare first edition of his favorite book, having tracked it down through a specialist dealer. Finally, the moment arrived. Dad handed Madison a small, beautifully wrapped box with my name on the tag. "This looks promising," she said, her eyes lighting up as she shook it gently, hearing the unmistakable jingle of keys. "Kevin, you shouldn't have." I watched her face carefully as she tore through the wrapping paper with poorly concealed excitement. She opened the box to find a keychain, a real Audi one this time, with a single key and a small photograph. For a moment, confusion crossed her features as she examined the photo. It showed me, standing proudly next to a gleaming white Audi R8, identical to the one she'd been coveting for months. The license plate frame read Kevin's, in custom lettering. "I don't understand," she said, looking from the photo to me. "I bought myself a Christmas present," I explained, keeping my voice neutral. "After the Adobe acquisition, I decided it was time to reward myself." "You've always had such great taste in cars, Madison. You inspired me." The color drained from her face as understanding dawned. This wasn't a key to her dream car. It was a photo of her dream car, now mine. But you don't even like sports cars," she stammered. "You've always said they're impractical." "I guess people change," I replied with a shrug. "Want to see it? It's parked down the street. I couldn't bring it right away because I needed to give you your actual gift first." I handed her another small package. She opened it mechanically, revealing a $50 Nordstrom gift card in a generic envelope. "I know how much you like shopping," I said, echoing the impersonal sentiment she'd attached to countless thoughtless gifts over the years. The room had gone painfully silent. Mom and Dad exchanged worried glances. Brian studied the floor with sudden fascination. Rachel squeezed my knee under the blanket, whether in support or caution, I wasn't sure. Madison's face cycled through several emotions rapidly: shock, confusion, hurt, and finally anger. "Excuse me," she said stiffly, rising from her spot on the floor. "I need some air." She walked quickly to the back door and stepped outside onto the patio, closing the door firmly behind her. "Well," Dad said after a moment of uncomfortable silence. "That was something." Mom gave me a disappointed look. "Kevin, was that necessary?" "I think I should check on her," Brian said, standing up. "No," I replied, surprising myself. "I'll go." As I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, I caught Rachel's expression, a complex mix of concern and something that looked like respect. This wasn't over yet. The cold air hit me like a physical force as I stepped onto the back patio. Madison stood at the far end, arms wrapped tightly around herself, her breath forming small clouds in the winter air. She didn't turn when the door closed behind me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was filled only by the distant sound of a neighbor's wind chimes and the occasional car passing on the street beyond the backyard. "That was quite a show you put on in there," Madison finally said, her voice tight. "Congratulations. You made your point." I leaned against the railing, keeping some distance between us. "And what point do you think I was making?" She turned to face me then, her eyes red-rimmed but fierce. "That you're rich now. That you can buy whatever you want. That you don't need anything from me anymore." "That's not it at all," I said quietly. "Then what? Please explain what possessed you to deliberately dangle my dream car in front of me like that." I took a deep breath. This was the moment I'd been building toward, yet now that it was here, I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a profound sadness. For years, Madison, I've put thought, effort, and yes, money into gifts for you. Things you mentioned wanting, things I knew would have meaning. And for years, you've given me afterthoughts, clearance items, regifted presents, things that showed zero consideration for who I am or what I might value. She started to protest, but I held up a hand. "It's not about the money. It never was. It's about the pattern of thoughtlessness that's defined our relationship for as long as I can remember. So yes, I wanted you to feel, just once, what it's like to be on the receiving end of that. To have someone dangle what you want most, only to receive something impersonal instead." Madison's posture changed slightly, her defensiveness giving way to something more vulnerable. "I didn't realize," she began, then stopped. "I didn't think it mattered that much to you. That's the problem, Madison. You didn't think about me at all." She was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the snow-covered yard. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost childlike. "Do you know why I've been so obsessed with that car?" I shook my head. "Because everything's falling apart," she admitted, a tremor in her voice. "Brian's firm is downsizing. My promotion came with more responsibility but barely any raise. We're drowning in debt trying to keep up appearances. I thought if I could just have that one thing, that symbol of success, everything else would somehow fall into place." Tears were streaming down her face now, and despite everything, I felt my anger begin to dissolve. "Brian told me things were tight," I said carefully. "But your social media, the way you talk about your life. It's all fake," she whispered. "Designer clothes bought on credit cards we can't pay off. Vacations we're still paying for months later. Dinners out that mean eating ramen at home for a week after." She wiped at her tears with the sleeve of her sweater. "I've been seeing a therapist. Did you know that? She says I have something called comparison anxiety. That I'd built my entire identity around being seen as successful, as having more than others. Including you." "Madison." "No, let me finish. When we were kids, I was the star. I got better grades, I was popular, I went to Cornell. You were always just steady. Reliable Kevin with his practical choices and his patience. But then your company started taking off, and suddenly you were the successful one. And I couldn't handle it." The raw honesty of her admission stunned me. This wasn't the Madison I thought I knew, the polished, competitive sister who never showed weakness. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" I asked. "About the financial struggles, about how you were feeling?" "Pride," she said simply. "Stupid, destructive pride." And I was embarrassed. How could I admit that the life I'd been bragging about for years was built on credit card debt and anxiety? That I cry myself to sleep some nights wondering how we'll ever dig ourselves out of this hole? I moved closer, leaning on the railing beside her. "And the gifts? All these years of thoughtless presents?" She looked genuinely ashamed now. "At first, it was just being careless. I'd remember at the last minute that I needed something for you, and I'd grab whatever was convenient. But over time, I think I think it became a way of keeping you at a distance. If I never gave you anything meaningful, I wouldn't have to admit how much your thoughtfulness made me feel inadequate. The honesty between us felt foreign but desperately needed. For the first time in years, maybe ever, we were speaking to each other without pretense or competition. I don't want to be this person anymore, Kevin, Madison said, her voice breaking. I hate who I've become. I hate that I've hurt you, that I've been so caught up in appearances that I've damaged our relationship. I just don't know how to fix it. Something shifted in me then. The vindication I'd expected to feel had been replaced by something more complex: compassion for the sister who'd been suffering behind her perfect facade, and hope that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken. We start here, I said quietly. With the truth. No more pretending. Madison nodded, wiping away the last of her tears. I'm so sorry, Kevin. For everything. For years of thoughtless gifts, for minimizing your achievements, for spreading rumors to the family. I've been a terrible sister. And I'm sorry for what I did today, I replied. It was petty and designed to hurt you. That's not who I want to be either. We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of years of misunderstanding between us beginning to lift. So what happens now? She asked. Now we go back inside, finish Christmas with the family, and tomorrow we start fresh. No more keeping score, no more competitions. Just a brother and sister trying to do better. Madison hesitated, then asked the question that was clearly weighing on her. Did you really buy that car? The R8? I couldn't help but laugh. Yes, I really did. But not to spite you. The timing was, well, that part was deliberate. But I've worked my ass off for years, Madison. For once, I wanted something impractical, something just for me. She managed a small smile. It suits you, actually. The responsible brother with the impractical sports car. As we turned to go back inside, Madison stopped me with a hand on my arm. One more thing. That gift card, that's not your real present. I do have something for you. It's not expensive, but it's something I started working on months ago. The skeptic in me wanted to doubt her, but the hope of reconciliation was stronger. I'll look forward to it, I said honestly. When we returned to the living room, the tension was palpable. Everyone looked up expectantly, clearly wondering if World War III had broken out in the backyard. Everything okay? Mom asked cautiously. Madison and I exchanged a look. We're working on it, I answered. The rest of Christmas Day unfolded with a strange new dynamic. The usual competitiveness between Madison and me had been replaced by something tentative but genuine. After dinner, she pulled me aside and handed me a carefully wrapped package. I was going to give this to you privately, she explained. It seemed too personal for the group unwrapping. But after everything today, I want you to have it now. Inside was a handmade scrapbook. Unlike the generic gifts of years past, this was clearly the result of months of effort. It contained photographs I'd never seen before, Madison and me as children, candid shots from family vacations, mementos from shared experiences I'd forgotten about. I contacted all your old friends, your college roommates, even some of your ex-girlfriends, she explained as I turned the pages. Everyone sent photos and memories. I wanted you to see yourself through the eyes of people who love you. The last page held a handwritten letter from Madison, dated 3 months earlier, long before my company acquisition or any of the events of the past few weeks. Dear Kevin, it began. I've been a terrible sister for too long. This book is the beginning of my apology, and hopefully, a new chapter for us. I looked up at her, genuinely moved. You started this months ago? She nodded. My therapist suggested it as a way to reconnect with you. I've been working on it since September. The gift card was just, I don't know, last-minute panic that this wouldn't be enough. For the first time in years, I saw my sister clearly not the competitive, materialistic person I'd grown to resent, but someone struggling with her own insecurities, trying in her imperfect way to be better. That night, as Rachel and I drove home in her Honda, the Audi safely parked at my apartment building, she asked what I was thinking. That revenge isn't as satisfying as I thought it would be, I admitted. But reconciliation might be, she suggested gently. I thought about the scrapbook, about Madison's tears on the patio, about the walls beginning to come down between us after so many years. Yeah, I said, watching the Christmas lights blur past the window. I think you might be right. New Year's Day dawned with a sense of possibility I hadn't felt in years. After the emotional roller coaster of Christmas, I'd spent a week between holidays reflecting on my relationship with Madison and what I wanted it to become. The vindication I'd briefly felt when executing my revenge had quickly hollowed out, leaving me with the realization that winning a battle while losing the war of siblinghood was no victory at all. I picked up my phone and composed a text to Madison and Brian, having a small New Year's brunch at my place tomorrow. Nothing fancy. Would love for you both to join. 11 a.m.? Madison's response came surprisingly quickly. We'll be there. Can we bring anything? It was such a normal, thoughtful question, the kind that siblings who actually like each other might exchange, that it caught me off guard. Just yourselves, I replied. And maybe an open mind. Rachel helped me prepare a simple but elegant spread. A vegetable frittata, fresh fruit, pastries from the bakery down the street, and mimosas. The apartment was still decorated for the holidays, twinkling lights adding a festive glow to the January morning. When the doorbell rang, I felt an unexpected nervousness. Madison and Brian stood in the hallway, Madison clutching a bouquet of winter flowers and a bottle of champagne despite my insistence they didn't need to bring anything. Old habits, she said with a self-conscious smile, handing me the flowers. But I'm trying to make them better habits. The initial awkwardness faded as we settled around the table, making small talk about the holidays and exchanging stories about our respective New Year's Eves. Rachel, ever the social facilitator, kept the conversation flowing until we'd finished eating and moved to the living room with fresh coffee. So, Madison said once we were settled, I'm guessing this isn't just a casual brunch invitation. I appreciated her directness. No, it's not. I wanted to talk. About Christmas, about our relationship, about moving forward. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Should I give you two some privacy? Actually, I'd like you to stay, I said. This affects you too, and I think we need total honesty here. I took a deep breath. Madison, what you said on Christmas about the financial struggles, about the anxiety, about the competition between us, it helped me understand a lot of things. But I think we need to address the underlying issues if we're going to have any kind of healthy relationship going forward. Madison nodded, setting down her coffee cup. I agree. And I've been doing a lot of thinking too. About patterns I need to break. For the next hour, we talked more openly than we had in our entire adult lives. Madison elaborated on her therapy journey, how she was working to untangle her self-worth from external validation and material success. I shared how her dismissal of my achievements over the years had created a distance between us that I hadn't known how to bridge. I always thought you had it all together, she admitted. The calm, rational brother who didn't need validation the way I did. It never occurred to me that my actions were hurting you. And I thought you were just materialistic and self-centered, I replied honestly. I never considered that it might be coming from a place of insecurity. Brian, who had been quiet for most of the conversation, finally spoke up. We should probably be honest about our financial situation too. The whole keeping up appearances thing hasn't just damaged your relationship with Kevin, it's put us in a really difficult position. He outlined the extent of their debt: credit cards maxed out, a mortgage they could barely afford, investment losses they'd been hiding from everyone, including our parents. The facade of success they'd maintained had cost them dearly, not just financially but emotionally. We're considering downsizing, Madison said, the admission clearly difficult for her. Selling the condo, moving to a smaller place, maybe even leaving the city. What about your jobs? Rachel asked. Madison and Brian exchanged a look. I've been offered a position with a smaller firm, Brian explained. Less prestige, more stability, better work-life balance. But it would mean a significant pay cut. And I'm thinking about a career change entirely, Madison added. Finance was never my passion, it was just where the money and status were. I'd been looking into art therapy programs, actually. My therapist thinks I might have an aptitude for it. I was genuinely surprised. Art therapy? I didn't even know you were interested in art. Remember how I used to draw all the time in high school? Madison asked. Before I decided it wasn't a practical career path? I did remember, vaguely, sketchbooks filled with surprisingly good portraits, abandoned sometime during her college applications process. The point is, she continued, we're trying to make changes. Real ones. To live more authentically and less performatively. I felt a sudden clarity about what I wanted to do, what I needed to do to help heal our relationship. I have a proposition, I said. You mentioned downsizing and career changes. Those are big steps that take time. I'd like to help. Madison immediately stiffened. We're not asking for charity, Kevin. It's not charity, I assured her. Think of it as family investment. Not a handout, but a hand up. I could help with financial planning, maybe even a low-interest loan to consolidate your credit card debt. No strings attached, just family helping family. Brian looked tentatively hopeful, but Madison remained guarded. Why would you do that after how I've treated you? Because that's what family does, I said simply. And because I want us to break this cycle once and for all. No more keeping score, no more competition. Just siblings supporting each other. Madison was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if I can accept that kind of help, she finally said. Not because of pride, though that's part of it. But because I haven't earned it. I haven't been the kind of sister who deserves that kind of generosity. Maybe that's exactly why you should accept it, Rachel suggested gently. Not because you've earned it, but because it's freely given. That's what unconditional love looks like. The conversation continued, moving from practical financial discussions to deeper emotional territory. We talked about childhood memories, about the subtle ways our parents had perhaps unintentionally fostered competition between us, about the adults we wanted to be going forward. As the afternoon wore on, I made an impulsive decision. Want to see the car? Madison looked surprised. The Audi? Really? Yeah. It's in the garage downstairs. And maybe you'd like to drive it? Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely. It's just a car, Madison. An expensive toy, sure, but at the end of the day, just a thing. What matters are the relationships we build, the way we treat each other. The four of us went down to the garage, where the white R8 gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Madison circled it slowly, admiring its lines with genuine appreciation. It's even more beautiful up close, she murmured. I handed her the keys. Take it for a spin. Brian can ride shotgun. Rachel and I will wait here. Kevin, I can't. You can. Consider it the first driving lesson. Maybe we can make it a regular thing, Sunday drives, you and me, taking turns behind the wheel. The symbolism wasn't lost on any of us. This car, which had briefly been a weapon in our sibling rivalry, could now become a bridge instead. Madison accepted the keys with a trembling hand. I don't know what to say. Say you'll try. That we'll both try. To be better siblings, better people. I'll try, she promised, and for the first time in years, I completely believed her. Over the next 6 months, Madison and I followed through on our New Year's resolutions. We attended sibling therapy together, unpacking years of competitive dynamics and miscommunications. I helped them develop a financial plan to address their debt, not as a controlling older brother but as a supportive partner in their journey towards stability. Madison and Brian did end up downsizing, moving to a charming smaller apartment in a less trendy but more community-oriented neighborhood. Madison enrolled part-time in an art therapy certification program, rediscovering her passion for creativity while maintaining her finance job at reduced hours. Our Sunday drives became a sacred ritual, sometimes in the Audi, sometimes just walking in the park, but always with honest conversation and a genuine desire to understand each other better. When my birthday rolled around in July, Madison presented me with a gift that brought tears to my eyes, a hand-illustrated book of our childhood memories, each page showcasing her artistic talent and the genuine effort to reconnect with our shared history. No expensive watch or gadget could have meant more. "This is incredible," I told her, carefully turning the pages. "You made this?" "Every page," she confirmed. "It took months. But it was healing for me too, remembering all these moments we shared before competition got in the way." As summer turned to fall, I found myself reflecting on the journey we'd taken from the bitter resentment I'd harbored on last Christmas to the genuine warmth I now felt when Madison's name appeared on my phone. The revenge I'd so carefully orchestrated had nearly cost me my sister. Instead, it had become the catalyst for the most authentic relationship we'd ever had. The material gifts, the Audi, the expensive watches, the status symbols we'd both used as weapons and shields had never been the real issue. They were just tangible manifestations of what was broken between us: trust, mutual respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. The real gift had been letting go of expectations, of keeping score, of needing to be right. In surrendering the need to win our unspoken competition, we'd both gained something far more valuable: a sibling relationship based on authenticity rather than appearance. So what would I say to anyone caught in a similar cycle of resentment and scorekeeping with a family member? That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to give someone a taste of their own medicine, but to offer the medicine they actually need. Even if that's forgiveness they haven't earned or understanding they haven't extended to you. Because at the end of the day, no luxury car or designer gift can replace the profound satisfaction of genuinely connecting with someone who shares your history, your DNA, your family stories. The most valuable possession isn't the one with the highest price tag, it's the relationship that withstands the tests of time, misunderstanding, and even our own worst impulses. Have you ever been caught in a similar situation with a family member? Did you choose revenge or reconciliation? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is the chance to be better than we've been before. Thank you for listening, and I wish you healing in all your relationships, especially the ones that feel beyond repair right now.